If you have a fantasy basketball draft, you need to make sure that after the draft that none of these players are floating around on your waiver wire. These players need to be taken in the last few rounds of your draft. We've got 13 of them. Let's go!
Jordan open. Chicago with the lead. Bryant to Shaq.
Not a game. We talking about practice.
LeBron James with no regard for human life. Irresponsible!
Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang!
Curry for three. Wow! Unbelievable. Making it rain in New York.
We the North are now we the champions.
Not the destination, it's the journey. Mamba out.
G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy. And today we are going through some players that are available at the very end of your fantasy basketball draft that I believe need to be taken with your last few picks and have a fair bit of upside for the majority of them, and that need to be on basically in every single league. Someone in your league needs to have them on their team because they have a lot of upside. We take a crack at them. They're a bit of a flyer type, but these are my top 13 players that need to be drafted in fantasy basketball leagues. I have tried to rank them in terms of my priority of which one should be taken. So if you have a few options between these guys, I'm going to count them down from 13 down to number 1. Number 1 being the one that I would make sure is the priority for everyone to draft. But of course, there are some differences in their stat sets and things like that. But at this stage of the draft, we are really only considering upside and who has the best fantasy game. So let's get stuck into it. Remember, if you have not yet already, go over to ballboysnba.com where you have access to all of my projections, rankings for categories, points, dynasty rankings there as well. ballboysnba.com. Go and get your season guide. If you have a fantasy basketball draft coming up, it will help you immensely. Let's get stuck in at number 13. Number 13 to me is Tari Eason. We know how good he is as a per-minute player. The steals are great. The rebounds are solid. He does well at block shots. He is just a really good per-minute fantasy basketball player. He is only at number 13 because I don't see the pathway for his minutes to get to where they probably need to be. I also did consider his teammate, Assar Thompson, at this spot, but he will not be making this list. But those two players on the Houston Rockets, I do believe it is tough for them to crack into the enough minutes that we need for them to be fantasy relevant. But if something were to happen, injuries, or even he just wins out a few more minutes, a player like Tari Eason doesn't need 28, 30 minutes a night to be fantasy relevant. He can get by with 22 to 24 minutes, especially if you're looking for those steal numbers, which he can do in abundance, even in limited minutes. So that's why I've chosen him over Assar, because I think his steal numbers, and he's proven it already in his rookie season. We can hope that he takes another step forward and maybe there's more opportunity in his second season. He is only at number 13 because I think that will be hard to come by. But Tari Eason, especially if you're looking for steals, he is definitely someone to have a crack at as your, one of your last picks if that is what you're looking for. Number 12, I have Brandon Miller. Now, I'm not a big fan of Brandon Miller, especially his rookie season. However, the recent news of Miles Bridges and his arrest warrant and all those sort of things, there's a lot of uncertainty. We know for a fact that that Miles Bridges is going to be out for the first 10 games at a minimum, probably more. But in that time, Brandon Miller will have a bit of an opportunity to either start or be the first guy off the bench. Now, you are still behind players like Gordon Hayward, players like PJ Washington, and obviously you've got the centers in Mark Williams there. So I don't think he necessarily starts opening night, but how long is it until Gordon Hayward goes out with an injury? Probably not too long. And he does have a bit more opportunity than he did before, with obviously the Miles Bridges situation getting a fair bit worse. So I think he's still worth a crack. Again, I'm not super high on his upside. He's kind of like a points, threes, rebounds player with not much else in the ways of assists, steals, blocks. Field goal percentage will be poor. So I don't think he's this super high upside swing, but again, number 2 pick in the draft. has potential to play a decent amount of minutes with a few of the other things going his way. He is still worth a crack in most drafts, I would assume. Let's talk about number 11, Jaylen Suggs, who has been starting at shooting guard for the Orlando Magic. He always has the issue in terms of his shooting so far in his NBA career, but he is a great defender, and he can give you some assists and steals late in drafts, and I think that has value, especially if your team is punting field goal percentage, or you have such a good field goal percentage that you can afford to take a small hit in that area. I do believe that this is now where we're starting to get into spots in these flyers from this player onwards of guys that I think have a real chance to stay in your fantasy roster for a decent amount of time if you need what they provide. And for Jaylen Suggs, that is the assists and steals categories. He also is not a bad shot blocker for a guard, and he's still a super young player. I still believe in his talent. We want to see the offense come along a little bit more this season, so hopefully he can provide that and not be a huge negative to your field goal percentage. Hopefully he can start to put up some more points and maybe some threes. Not super optimistic that comes around, but there's a small part of me that still thinks that it potentially could. And if nothing else, he is probably the player that has the best opportunity, outside of those main guys in Fultz, Franz, Paolo, Wendell. He has the main opportunity to be that fifth guy on this Orlando Magic team to be a fantasy relevant player with those assists and steals. So he comes in at number 11. At number 10, I have Coby White, and I've doubled up on number 11 because that is not correct. So he is number 10. We'll fix that up. He looks like he's going to be the starter over in Chicago as a starting point guard, and he is someone that can put up points and threes in abundance. He's a good free throw percentage shooter. He can maybe get some assists as well. He will not rebound. He will not get steals. He will not get blocks. He also probably won't shoot extremely efficiently from the field. However, there's been a lot of talk in Chicago about them trying to spread the load a little bit more offensively, get the other players outside of Levine, DeRozan, and Vucevic as the main offensive guys. So have a little bit more options there. And I think Coby White can definitely fulfill that need. And I think if he plays 25 to 30 minutes, he can be a guy that is very valuable, especially if you're potentially punt field goal percentage or a punt blocks team or both, or even just if you're looking for those points, threes, and assists at the end of drafts, which are, sometimes more difficult to find. Coby White can definitely do that for you. So someone who's risen a fair bit in my valuation over the preseason. Did not think he would start. It's come at the expense of someone like a Javon Carter, who some people were high on early in the preseason, but I think it's definitely trending towards Coby White being the starter at point guard in Chicago. Let's talk number 9, Jeremy Sohan. Now, this one's an interesting one because I'm not 100% sure just yet. Again, recording this on the 17th of October. Don't know exactly who is going to be the starter for the San Antonio Spurs, but in some preseason games, they have been starting Jeremy Sohan at point guard. There's been a little bit of talk about that in the offseason, that might be something that they do. And I am a big fan of how much this guy has shown a willingness to improve his game. He has a very intriguing stat set when it comes to points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. The percentages will be rough-ish. He did improve his free throw percentage a lot throughout the season with that one-handed shot. So, again, he's shown the ability to work on his game and improve elements that were previously weaknesses. So, I think that he has a chance to come out and be an interesting fantasy player at the very least. And if he is getting some serious point guard reps in this team, I think he has a chance to be a very unique and very sneaky value play in fantasy basketball. A little bit of a risk because he's not quite concrete, locked in as that starter, but I think this is where I would rank him in terms of potential upside and realisticness of it succeeding amongst all of these other players. So I have Jeremy Sohan as a player that should be drafted in every league at number 9 on this late round picks list. At number 8, we have Patrick Williams, another Chicago Bull. Now, the reason I like Patrick Williams is that I feel quite confident in his role. I think he's going to be the starter. I feel very certain about that. He's going to be the starter for the Chicago Bulls. He should get you close to a steal and a block and, 11 to 12 points at a minimum with 4 to 5 rebounds. That is a very solid base of fantasy production that at worst, he's going to be sort of a top 140, top 130 player. So I think that provides a level of stability. And he's still extremely young. I believe he was maybe the youngest, if not the second youngest player in his draft class. So going into his third or fourth season? Anyway, early in his career, he still has a lot of upside left to bring. We spoke about the same thing with Kobe White, with those other players wanting to take another step forward in the assisting those big three in Chicago on the offensive side of the court. We haven't seen that yet come from Patrick Williams, so I don't know if his upside is all that high, but compared to a lot of these guys on this list, I feel like his role is probably one of the more secure ones. So if you have taken some risky picks and you want someone who at very least can provide back-end value and someone that I don't think you're really going to need to drop at any point, I think he's going to just at least provide top 130, top 120 value with the upside of maybe top 100, top 90, probably best case scenario, but again, a little bit more of a higher floor than I think some of these guys are, because I believe his role and minutes are pretty safe. So he is at number 8. Let's go to number 7 on the list, and it is one of the highest rises, in my opinion, over the preseason, and that is Bal Kabali. Kabali? I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Someone who's French, please let me know. But he has looked really good in the preseason. I was a really big fan of him in a dynasty format. I actually thought that there was some very special upside with him. I love the way he moves. I love the way he defends. And that has translated immediately across into the preseason, much faster than I initially thought. And if he's going to be the starter, he has the chance to put up at least some interesting numbers in the steals and blocks category. Maybe he gets some rebounds, some assists, some points and threes. I think it's by no means a sure thing that he's going to put up relevant fantasy stats. Rookies, especially younger players, which is what Bal is. He's a younger end of the spectrum for the rookies. He is someone that is going to have patches of rough production. Like, the percentages are going to be pretty ugly. I don't think he's going to come out and score a whole lot or shoot threes or get a lot of assists, but the defensive stats are at least intriguing enough for me to take a crack at and see where it goes. I do think that there will be some rough times for him, which is why he's not higher. But I do still think that he is definitely someone that I am going to grab, and I did grab him. He was undrafted in the FBI World Cup, and I grabbed him off the waiver wire. Spent a decent amount of fab budget to do it, just to make sure that I have that opportunity, because I think that he's definitely impressed me more than I thought, and there's a lot of room for these kind of players to continually surprise us. So I think he is definitely someone I would not let be sitting on my waiver wire if I was in a standard league for fantasy basketball. Let's talk about Paul Reed at number 6. Now, I might have had him higher before the preseason starts, but there's a few other players that I feel more confident in their roles. But it does remain that of everyone on this list, he probably has the highest upside and the highest ceiling of everyone. Now, I think that the pathway to minutes is more difficult for him than other players that I've got listed ahead of him, for example. But Paul Reed is still someone that needs to be drafted in every single fantasy basketball league, in the off chance that he finds himself playing 24 plus minutes per night. He could probably even put up standard league value in 21, 22 minutes per night, simply on the back of his blocks, rebounds, steals, field goal percentage. He also is someone that, in the G League, could shoot a little bit of the 3-ball as well. He does have a very nice fantasy-friendly per-minute game. We are waiting still on the James Harden deal, so there's a few things that still are yet to play out on this team. So there's a lot of moving pieces still over in Philadelphia. So I'm willing to be patient on a Paul Reed and wait for all that dust to settle over there. We have to see how much he's going to play next to Embiid. Is he the sole backup behind Embiid? Are they playing someone like a Mo Bamba any minutes at all, or is he out of the rotation completely? A few question marks still over at Philadelphia. So it might not be the most successful pick, but if it does hit, if it does actually turn out to be everything we'd hope for, it is a massive, massive win. So you have to have Paul Reed, at least on someone's team in your league needs to have Paul Reed. He should not be sitting on any waiver wires after your fantasy basketball draft, because the upside is so high. Let's talk about number 5, Derek Lively. Now, he is someone that, again, we've heard quotes about them, looking at starting him at center. He has done that in the preseason. Now, does that convert over into the NBA regular season? That's yet to be seen. Even if he is the starter, is he going to be like a 22, 23 minute a night starting, like a token starting player? Is he going to be getting 28, 30 minutes a night? We don't know. But again, shot blockers that are decent rebounders, starting centers in the NBA they're a pretty valuable commodity outside the top 100, top 120 range in drafts. And he has shown a very strong ability to block shots in the limited minutes that he's been given so far. So if you are looking for a shot blocker late, there is really no better player that has at least a shot at decent minutes and production in his rookie season than a Derek Lively. So again, if he's sitting on your waiver wire, I think you've got to have a crack and grab him. Wait and see how it all works out in the first few weeks of the season. See what his minutes are like, see what he is in terms of production in other categories outside of blocks. He might not be much. I definitely don't think he's going to be, splashing threes or scoring a lot. He's going to be a very low usage player. He's not going to be providing any assists or anything like that. But if he can give you good field goal percentage, rebounds, and blocks, that's good enough at this kind of a stage of the draft for someone who, again, is going very late in drafts. All of these players, by the way, are going on an average of outside the top 120 across every single platform as well. So all of these players should be available outside of 120 based on ADP data. So again, they are all easy to be taken in the last rounds of your draft. Let's talk number 4, Jaylen Johnson, one of the guys that I've been most excited to see in preseason play very, very well. Now, DeAndre Hunter has not suited up for any game so far this season. He's dealing with a bit of, I want to say, a knee injury at the moment. Now, they are hopeful that Hunter is going to be available for the tip-off of the regular season, but it's not guaranteed. And even if he is, there's a part of me that thinks Jaylen Johnson is just simply a better, and that's not a part of me, there is a lot of me that thinks Jaylen Johnson is a better player than DeAndre Hunter. Now, the shooting is not his strength, and that is what the Hawks do need, but I do think that there is a very real possibility that he is a starter come the beginning of the regular season or very early on in the regular season. And even if he's not the starter, I think that if he's the sixth man or someone getting an elevated role, he's one of those types of players that does not need a whole lot of minutes to be fantasy relevant. Rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, great field goal percentage. He's not going to kill you from the free throw line, I don't believe, either. So he is definitely someone that you need to make sure is not on a waiver wire. He is maybe not the most well-known of names out there, so he might be available in your league if you've already had your draft, but go and look for him. Jaylen Johnson, I believe, has a chance to be putting up some really good numbers stretches this season, if not the entire season. So I do think that he is someone well worth grabbing at the end of your drafts to see what happens. Number 3. These top 3 I have so much confidence in, and I don't even really consider them to be flyers. I am happy reaching for these guys inside the top 10 rounds of your draft to be a starter on your NBA team. I think all 3 of them are going to be permanent starters for their respective NBA teams. And number 3, we're going to kick it off with Bennedict Mathurin. Now, Bennedict Mathurin looks like he's going to be starting at the 2 or the 3, whatever you want to call it. And he had one of the higher rookie free throw attempt rates we've seen in the past few seasons. Second last year only to a Paolo Banchero, but he hit them at a very high rate, and that is extremely hard to find late in drafts. We've talked about free throw percentage being the hardest category to find at good volume after the first couple of rounds in your draft, and Bennedict Mathurin is one of the few players outside the top 120 that can give you a decent boost in that category. Scoring, threes, free throw percentage are all there. Now, he's not going to be someone that gets you a steal or a block, or he's not going to get you many assists, but the value in him being a 30-minute-a-night starter that's going to maybe get you close to 20 points per game, get you close to 2 threes, go to the free throw line 6 times a game at 85%, that's all very valuable. And I think that you need to take a crack at him for those unique stat sets, and the scarcity of those numbers at that point of the draft gets him to this number 3 spot. Even if some of these other guys maybe rank better than him on a 9-category setting, I think what he does is going to be harder to replace than a lot of these other players on the list. So he is at number 3. The top 2 players, again, if you haven't already, I've talked about my sleepers, top 10 sleeper list. Both of these players are on that list. They double up a little bit here, but again, number 2 is the Kiwi, Steven Adams. There is just no reason that he should be on any waiver wires. Someone in your league is going to be bad at free throw percentage. If that is your team, grab Steven Adams. He, in my opinion, has a chance to be top 5 in rebounds. He's going to give you nearly 2.5 assists, a steal, a block, 59, 60% from the field. He's not going to score a lot. He's not going to hit any threes. He's going to be bad at free throw percentage, but you don't care at that point. It's the last. He's available so late, and it's guaranteed production. He's the starting center, and he will be the starting center for the Grizzlies the entire season. 11 rebounds you just cannot find at that point in the draft. And again, he will tank your free throws. That is correct. But if you don't care, or if you can live with it, if your free throws are so high, it might be worth grabbing Steven Adams to give you those 11.5 rebounds per game. Again, no one at that point is giving you anything close to that level of production. So he is absolutely someone that needs to be drafted in your league if he is going late. And he always does. He's always discounted, always underrated. Guarantee he's going to be there late in your draft. Someone needs to have him on their team. And number 1 player to take with your last round pick or your late round picks. Again, I'd be happy to go into the 10th round to draft this player. Number 1 is Assar Thompson. Now, not his brother Amen Thompson, because I don't think the opportunity is quite there for Amen, but Assar Thompson looks to be a 30-minute-a-night starter. He's even pushed someone like Ivy to the bench, it seems. He's going to get steals at an insane rate, blocks at a great rate. He will rebound well for a guard forward player. He will get you decent enough assists. The percentages, field goal, free throw, are going to be rough. He will turn the ball over a lot as well. So again, his 9-category ranking may not look as favorable as what I've listed him on this list for, but he is very strong in a few areas. Think about a Matisse Thybulle, that level of steals and blocks, adding in a little bit more scoring, more rebounding, and definitely more assists than a Matisse Thybulle. And you have got a very strong fantasy basketball player that will improve as the season goes on. So again, he probably will be a little bit rough, especially in the percentages early in the year, but by February, by March, he will be someone that I believe will be a game changer for fantasy basketball league. So he must be drafted in every single fantasy basketball league, points leagues, category leagues. He needs to be drafted. He will be better in category leagues than he is in points because the steals and blocks value is higher in those types of leagues than in points leagues. But even still, you've got to take a crack at him because I think he's going to be someone that gets better as the season goes along. And I'm a big fan of what the Thompson twins can do, and Assar looks like he's got the role from the jump, and I'm very excited to see it. So those are my top 13 players to take with your last few rounds in fantasy basketball drafts. There are obviously some more players that you can definitely take, but I think I'd be prioritizing those 13 over the rest. And I've tried to choose players that are definitely going outside the top 120 draft spots at this stage. So let me know down in the comment section below if there's anyone else that you want me to talk about that are late round pickups that you maybe want to grab, or if you're not sure if they're worth drafting over any of these players, let me know down in the comment section below, guys. We have got some more podcasts coming, the top 10, top 5 players coming out for the most interesting fantasy basketball players are coming up over the next 5 days. We also will have a live Q&A on Wednesday night Eastern Standard. I think we're going 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so check on that out. It's over on the my YouTube channel if you want to go and give that video a big thumbs up ahead of time. Schedule it into your calendars. Come and get your questions answered over there. Go and check that one out, guys. And we'll be doing plenty more. We've got the top 10 busts and sleepers for points leagues coming out. Top 10 busts and sleepers for category leagues have already been released, so go and check them out. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give this video a big thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Bye.